manipulation.
No, the whole I
Which is
can wait
beginning right now.
until he gets the manipulation part. And that in and of itself takes about 5 minutes, in which case you can be staring at a screen, watching a little dial turn for 5
So at this point, the
minutes.
soft drill
Half
is
you guys are going to
positioning
walk out, the other half
wheels
are going to fall asleep.
1 and 2 in
So I'm going to
different
skip ahead
locations.
and
Trying to
assure you
find
that
the
yes,
very
the whole thing does get opened in about the space of 5 minutes, because that's a particularly manipulable lock. On average, is about 20 minutes. Again, the U.S. government hears about this and is like, oh crap, you know, our locks can be robot dialed in the space of a weekend, and the ones that are easy can be manipulated, can be opened by a robot. So what do we do? Well, the very same company that built the first auto dialer capable of robot dialing a manipulation-proof lock, as well as building the smart dialer which could manipulate open a regular lock, built the solution to all this. Gotta wonder whether the first two were like sales efforts or something, in the form of the Moss Hamilton X07. This is a computer-controlled lock which has an LCD display at the top and a dial in the front. For the user, it's like dialing a regular lock, because you dial and you see the numbers go past in the top. It has a few interesting features though. For one thing, to prevent a robot dialer from working, it's got interlocks which will destroy the lock internally if you dial too quickly, because it'll blow a fuse. Every time you change direction, it puts you at a new position on the dial. Something that's physically impossible with normal locks. It's like changing direction at 67 and all of a sudden finding yourself at 22. You're transported through space and time, as it were, by the computer to start you at a new position on the dial, which you have no idea what it's going to be. Of course, has a LCD display on the top, which can only be read from a very narrow family of angles, which means that it's very hard to put a camera in place to read it. It has a proper 1 million possible combinations, because there is no leeway in terms of dialing the right or wrong number. And of course, it has an audit trail, so you can see how many times the lock has been opened and how many times people have failed to open the lock, which is kind of useful if somebody tries and fails to find out, so you can go asking naughty questions. If you dial continuously without a pause of a quarter second every 1 1/3 turn, the lock will shut down. This is kind of interesting. Why would they do this? The logic is that your human arm can only twist around so far. And when it twists so far, you have to pick it up and put it back on the dial again and keep turning, whereas a robot can turn infinite distance. So if you dial fast more than this, then you're probably a robot. If you enter a whole combination in less than 15 seconds, well, you're either Superman or a robot, and Superman doesn't actually exist in real life. If you dial continuously for more than 5 minutes without letting the lock power down, you should probably take a rest anyway, so it does it for you. And of course, if you try 10 combinations in sequence, then you have to wait a couple of minutes and go check your notes. And this is the internal flowchart of the lock, for those of you guys who are wondering how they can possibly crack it. Basically what it is it has a stepper motor / generator, which provides the position information as well as the power for the lock. You don't have to ever change the batteries on this lock, which is kind of useful if you're in sub-Saharan Africa, where your only source of batteries is back in the US, and you've got to tell your buddy to go down to the Bartell Drugs and FedEx you some. It has a random number generator feeding a microprocessor, which it uses to encrypt the combination and all the working information in memory, display unit, and a separate drive motor which integrates through the whole thing in a very clever way, so it requires an absolute minimum of power. The cool thing is the motor actually turns a little gear, which then allows the main dial to engage the bolt. And of course, I'm not going to go into this. The computer types among you can probably find this on the web. If you go to my web page, I'll get to that at the end. Basically, they put a lot of research into making this thing very resistant to differential power analysis and other fun toys like that. And of course, if you decide to drill the safe open, drill into the lock, break the lock, open the safe, and then replace the lock itself is potted in a compound called Dimax, which has these little UV fluorescent particles scattered throughout it. And when they install a new lock, they take a picture of these UV particles under UV light and file this away. And every once in a while, they'll come back and check that against the reference picture to make sure nobody swapped out the lock. because it's impossible to duplicate the position of these UV particles because they're just poured in randomly. Basically, and here's a long quote which you can all read for yourselves. As far as we know, if you don't have the combination, you're not going to get this thing open because it's going to take 190 days to dial this thing with a robotic dialer, dialing every possible combination. This is, of course, as far as we know, because who knows what intelligence agencies or clever hobbyists have developed. Some of you guys might have seen this talk at Last Hope when I gave the preliminary version. If you guys came away and had a brilliant idea, by all means come up, I'll give you the microphone, you can tell everybody. Anybody? Damn. Yeah, that's...
Camera on the ceiling to see the number.
That's the thing, the LCD display is specifically designed to prevent that.
Possible EMP attacks, possibly from these.
But then you've broken the lock and you got to replace it.
That's true. Yeah, you don't know.
Anyway, so pardon? It can only be seen from a very narrow family of angles, which is probably blocked by the guy's big fat head in the way as he's trying to dial the lock. Because this is a civil servant who probably can't, who's like trying to read it, and like his head's in the way. You know.
It's like that. The guy who's dialing can find his own belly blocking so he can't read it.
Yeah, differential power analysis. They thought of that, I think, in most cases. Anyway, so that's probably the most difficult lock to open in the world. There are a lot of safes out there which aren't used by the US government, but are used by people who really don't pay that much attention to security and are made by manufacturers who realize their customers don't pay that much attention to security. And so they have minor design flaws. Like one particular safe where you could find what would appear to be the drop-in area, just feel for the contact points, enter those particular contact points into a program that was available on the web, and hit go, and it would tell you the combination of the safe. And your super secure 4-digit combination was, took you just 30 seconds to get. Yeah, don't buy safes that are made by people that don't know what they're doing. In any case, if you want to learn more about this stuff, the definitive reference on the subject is Mark Tobias' Lock, Safes, and Security. If you only buy one book, that's in fact the book to buy. There's an electronic version which is more expensive but has like cool videos like the one I show you on the Moss Hamilton soft drill. If you want to see all the intricate details of how it works, that's the place to go. You can also search it if you're just looking for something because it's a gigantic book. If you don't have any money but you want to learn how to do this, Matt Blaze's Safe Cracking for the Computer Scientist is absolutely incredibly awesome. Half the graphics in this presentation were shamelessly stolen from that text because the guy's amazing when it comes to taking pictures of this stuff. It's free, and it does a really good job of explaining it. And if you want to do this professionally, there's the National Locksmith Guide to Manipulation, which talks more about things that you might encounter in the field.
As far as having money, if we had the money, we worry about cracking safes in the first place.
It's a hobby.
Yeah, it's one
Lock sport.
Yeah, it's one way to look at it.
So any questions? And you might want to go up to the microphone so everybody can hear you and the video can.
Question, but could you speak to the ratings on safes? The difference between fire and burglary ratings?
Okay, good question about the ratings on safes. If you're buying a safe, what do you look for? Well, first of all, make sure it has a real lock on it, as we all saw. If it's a fire-rated safe, it's designed to keep out fire. It's not designed to keep out burglars. This means that a burglar with a can opener may very well be able to open it. It may feel really solid because they want you to think it might help against burglars, but it actually isn't designed to resist against burglars, and they save money by removing all the stuff that would help it against burglars, except for some big shiny bolts that are probably worthless. Burglar-rated safes are correspondingly not rated to withstand fire, but they have things like thicker walls and hard plate, which is a very drill-resistant plate, which will make it a royal pain in the ass for some guy coming after it with a drill. They might have things like relockers, which are devices designed to detect somebody trying to break the safe and lock it permanently, at least until you call a safe technician who knows exactly where to drill. And overall, the burglary-resistant safes are rated by the UL on a certain code fashion. There's TL-rated safes, which are safes rated to resist burglars armed with standard tools. There are TX-rated safes, which are rated to withstand burglars armed with torches and explosives. And there's one more rating just for torches and tools, and I forget what it's called. And these are printed in a form like TL15, TL30, TL60, which means that given a safe expert who knows exactly what he's doing, it will take him at least 15 minutes to open that safe with standard hand tools or a certain amount of explosives or whatever. This means that if you buy a TL15 safe, you have to make sure the cops will get there in about 8 minutes. How much margin you want to leave is up to you. But it gives you a very good way of quantifying, this safe will hold me because, well, the cops will be here because they're right down the road, or the cops will never be here, better make it a royal pain in the ass and get a TXTL60X6, which means it's rated to withstand this attack from all 6 sides for a full hour, which means that your average mortal is never going to get inside. Yeah.
That example where you had the 4 combinations, what is it you fed in, and then what was it doing to
in the interest of keeping safe the fools who are stupid enough to buy that particular safe, though it's not an American safe, it's actually a European safe. For those of you guys who think European security is entirely 100% better than ours, it's not. I don't want to talk too much about that.
I mean, just what was going on?
Basically, you fed in what what appeared to be the contact area.
By listening to the stethoscope and so forth?
No, you feel for it. You just feel where it stops, where there's a little bit of resistance. Yeah. And you feed in the last digit, and you hit go, and it calculates out the combination. Yeah. Really, really simple one, scarily so. But
another quick point about cheap safes.
Mm-hmm.
If it has an electronic lock, it's almost assuredly
Yeah.
carrying defeat. Some of them just really get a 9-volt battery with a pair of wires on it.
yeah, no, really, like having poked around a few control panels of electronic safes and found like the couple of wires hiding out under them, and then gone open and inside realized that the wires went directly to the solenoid, and realized that your average 9-volt battery with some alligator clips clip and open.
At least if that's on purpose, it's the emergency get in mode, you say.
Yeah.
But otherwise,
I don't trust my safe manufacturer enough to do that.
plug the keypad,
Yeah.
plug in another keypad that you know the combination of, because you bump the thing up and you unplug the wire.
That's really clever and really stupid at the same time.
Exactly.
His point was that some models you could unplug the keypad from the safe, plug in a keypad from a safe to which you knew the combination, and then your code would work. It's like, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, I don't think garage door openers work, but anyway, I want to get to some people who are like actually unlazy enough to stand up and get to the microphone. So, you in the back at the microphone.
All right. In general, like in terms of locks such as padlocks and other things, how would you say combination locks compare to key locks in terms of security?
Your average master lock or padlock can be remarkably difficult to pick for what it is. I wouldn't trust it to secure any amount of money, but if you've looked at picking those, the procedure for doing so is somewhat involved. You actually have to you use kind of like the program I showed you. You figure out the possible range of combinations, and then there's some people can manipulate them, some just have to brute force it basically. However, you can shim them. I'm talking from the manipulation perspective.
You can pull it back off with a freaking pair of diagonal cutters in 10 seconds.
Yeah, use a can opener. I mean, these are lock or padlocks here.
He was asking combination or key.
Oh, in general, combination versus key.
Yeah.
How much are you going to pay? Like, there are very good, like, small padlock form combination locks, and there are very bad ones, just as there are very good small form key locks, like the little American padlocks, which are a royal pain in the ass to pick because they use serrated pins, and some of them even have serrated pin chambers to match. Even though these things are dinky and you could cut through the shackle in 5 seconds with a pair of bolt cutters, you're not going to pick them open anytime soon. But the Sargent Greenleaf 8088, like you're talking about, are you're not going to manipulate those open anytime soon because to get those measurements, you have to measure the distance you're pulling the shackle because there's no rounded gate area; it's all square, and yeah, it gets really complicated. So there are secure locks. And there are insecure locks.